All right, so back on the airplane, I went ahead and took these four clamps off, and the vertical stabilizer basically didn't move. I didn't have any kind of a gap open up. I was able to grab the vertical and move it up and down and move it a little bit left and right, so it wasn't binding on anything. But loosening the clamps basically didn't do anything for this gap in here. Of course, it did loosen, but there wasn't any real gap. I mean, I could have maybe put a 32 thousandths, maybe a 20 thousandths thick sheet in here, but it just didn't seem like it was worth it. It was so close, I really wouldn't even call it a gap. So I went ahead and I reclamped it, and I made sure that my 1/4 inch offset here is still good. I double checked to make sure by running the lines, the tape measure up here and here, just to make sure that this was still square or perpendicular to the fuselage. I also put my digital level along the side, various places along both sides of the vertical, and those measurements were the same. It's actually 88.8 degrees. So at that point, I went ahead and I drilled through the bracket, through the spar at two locations on the bottom, this location and that location there. Those are the easiest to get to with it in place. So I just anchored that a little bit better with the clecos. I left my clamps in place. And now I am working on drilling the holes back here at the bottom. Now the instructions don't have you do it this way. The instructions tell you once you get everything aligned, you're supposed to have there's an angle piece that goes back here along this back edge here, and that's the stop for your up elevator. It's an angle bracket that gets mounted here, and then you're supposed to bolt this to that bracket. But with everything in really, really nice alignment, the way that I like it, I think this is the best that I'm going to get it. Everything seems to be right on the money. I want to go ahead and locate these three holes that are down here. There's another one that goes in here, which I haven't located yet, but I wanted to get these three holes set up down here and work my way basically from here up. So I plan to do these three holes, and then I'll probably do the rest of the holes on this plate. And then the last thing I'll do is this one, matching this bracket that I don't have in place yet. I still have to make it, matching that to this. Anyway, that's just how I want to do it. It makes a little bit more sense for me. Sorry for wobbling the camera. I'm scratching myself. So at this point, of course, you're basically drilling blind. There's no way to know where these holes are ending up. I've got the tail wheel mount. So if you can imagine, if you remember when you put all this together, the tail wheel is mounted to a plate that comes back here and around like this. And you want to make sure that these holes, you have edge distance on the hinge bracket, and you also have edge distance on this piece that's welded behind here. And you're probably wondering, well, how do you do that? That's a good question. Basically what I did, reaching through these holes and using a mirror, I was able to locate, you can locate, like these three rivets, or these four rivets. There's a rivet just tucked up underneath here. You've got these rivets here you can use for reference. And you've got this cutout hole, this relief hole back here. You can use that as a reference from the other side and kind of see in relation to that where your welded bracket comes to. So I looked at that and I was comfortable with it. So I went ahead and I used the dimensions from the print. I'll get you that print number in a minute, but I just marked these out according to the drawing. And I actually moved this one over a little bit. When I center punched this one, I moved it just off of the crosshair. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to move this one. When I center punch this, I'm going to center punch it just inside of the crosshair. So anyway, I did that, and I went ahead and drilled this little drill. I forget what number it is, but it's a very small drill bit. I went ahead, drilled that all the way through, and then I took my flashlight, and I just shined the flashlight through that hole, and using a mirror, I looked at it from the other side, and it looks fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this one. Hopefully it will look fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and lay this one out. Hopefully that one will be just as good as these two. And if all three of those are good, I'm going to go ahead and drill these full size right now. And then I'm going to try to put bolts in them. And then I'll probably move up to the front. Like I said, I'll probably go ahead and drill what I can in place. Whatever I can't drill in place, I'll use a drill bit to mark the holes. And then I'll disassemble everything. I'll finish drilling those holes. I'll deburr everything. I'll deburr these holes, clean up everything really well. Put it all back together. Use actual bolts to bolt it in place. Double check my dimensions on everything. And then make this bracket and fit the bracket. That's the plan. Let me drill some more holes down here, and then I'll get back to you. Before I go, let me give you that drawing number. So if you're doing a tail wheel like I am, here's the tail wheel mount. This is that aft bulkhead that I was just looking at, and this is that weldment that I was talking about. So when you bring down your vertical stabilizer, it goes on this bulkhead here, which is ghosted at the moment. And then this weldment, of course, is behind everything. You can't see this. But your holes have to go through here, and you have to maintain edge distance from this edge. The dimensions are given here for the tail dragger. The dimensions for these bolts are called out on this drawing, and these are the dimensions that I used, and they worked, or at least this one did. I'm getting ready to drill this one next. So, and this is drawing 27. All right, let me get some holes drilled and I'll get back to you. Howdy, everyone. All right, obviously we are back at the airplane, back at the tail. I've got the vertical stabilizer out of the way, and I just finished fabricating this bracket. This is another mounting place for the vertical to mount, and it also acts as the up elevator stop, mechanical stop for the up elevator travel. Now, like I had talked about earlier, where am I here? Let's see if I can get this. I had notched this part here because this horn rotated back and hit this deck piece back here before this horn did. So I had to notch it to allow this horn to come back far enough that this horn would actually touch back here. So since I had done that, I have also gone ahead and duplicated that notch on my angle bracket. Of course, that's not part of the plans, but even with that notch cut out in here, and with the elevators at their full up travel, I'm getting a little over 28 degrees, and you're allowed 30. I would really like to have 30, but I'm just not going to get it. So I was happy with the notch that I had cut out in the deck plate, and I've also just now mimicked or duplicated that notch on this piece. So in doing that, I had to move the 3 holes for the rivets. So I was able to maintain this center hole. There's a hole over here hidden underneath the clamp, and there's a hole here that's partially hidden underneath the clamp. I had to relocate those holes because of this notch to make sure that I maintained edge distance. So now I've got the angle in place, and using a straight edge along this face here, I have this face in alignment with this face. Obviously I've got it clamped. I just ran my drill bit down through as many holes as I could. So now I'm going to take this off. I'm going to drill those holes. I'll put this back in place with some clecos, mark the other holes that I couldn't get to because of the clamps, take it off, drill those holes, and then I'll probably run a couple bolts through it. Try to get the rivets riveted. No, I take that back. I'm going to put the bolts in here, and I'll put clecos, if I can, through the rivet holes. Then I'm going to put my vertical back up here and see how this works with the vertical, and also if it has any effect on the plate that is here, that angled plate. I want to make sure that with this in place, it doesn't interfere with anything here or up here on this attachment plate. Once that's been verified, then I can rivet this in place. I can bolt it in place. Of course, I'll have to match drill these holes, but we'll get there.